Good morning or good afternoon or good night, class. Great to see you. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Sorry that I couldn't be there today, but am traveling to Eastern West Virginia Technical Community College where Shepherd is going to be setting up an articulation agreement for degree completion. So today what I want to talk to you about just for a few moments is your role as an adjudicator, as a professional listener as it were, in the field. So we've been listening to people make presentations, whether they're musical, whether they're academic, in your classroom. And as you go into the real world as an educator, as a performer, you may be asked to be a judge for something. And this could be anything from judging solo events where you give a rating. It could be a competition where you have to pick a prize winner or prize winners. You may be the only judge. You may be on a panel of judges and you have to reach a particular decision about who's going to be a winner. Sometimes even afterwards they will ask you to say things to the students, and that's a really difficult thing, especially when you know your job as a judge at times is to pick a winner. Your time there as a judge is also to encourage and really give positive feedback to students. So we're going to talk a little bit about the philosophy of competition or adjudicated events. Why are these things important? If you're in a public school setting or even in the private studio, they really help with goal setting for your students during the year. They give them benchmarks for success. So whether you're competing for a prize and you get first, second, third, honorable mention, there's also the goal of going for a particular rating. If you're a member of a professional organization, you may find that in the student performances plan that adjudications or ratings that you get are cumulative, and when students have so many ratings above a certain mark, then they'll be eligible for some kind of prize, whether it's a trophy, certificate, or even money sometimes in the end. So these things I think can be really important for your own students and your own ensembles in terms of setting goals. These kinds of adjudication opportunities also might offer you the time to study abroad, to take your groups abroad, to take your groups to Carnegie Hall, for instance. That's how Shepherd got there. They were entered in a competition. I've been a part of those things before on the screening panel. So as a professional musician, as a professional educator, you may find yourself being called to do this somewhere along the line. So in your resources for this particular assignment, I've given you some various links. And so let's start off with, first of all, whenever you're contacted about judging something, it's really important as a professional that you respond in a prompt manner, because a lot of times these organizations are really dependent upon you for providing that professional input for their students. So they want your response in a timely manner. So whether it's a phone call or an email, make sure that you respond, because they'll just be wondering whether or not you're really going to be available for that particular event. Then find out what is it that you're going to be judging. So there's some questions to ask. What age group students are they going to be? It could be, is this a group setting? Is it competitive? Are they getting a rating? Are they playing music from a particular time period? Is there a time limit involved? And we'll talk more about that in just a moment. We said, what kind of music are they playing? Again, do I have to pick a winner? Do you have a description of the ratings, what your definition of a particular rating is? Do they get numbers, or do they get awards? Superior, excellent, very good, good, fair, etc. What constitutes a passing rating? For instance, I'll tell you, in West Virginia, for the West Virginia Music Teachers Association, 1 is superior, 2 is excellent, 3 is very good. So to be eligible for performance points that go towards trophies, you can't get anything below a 3. So those are things that you need to look at with the particular organization that you're working for. It's always good in terms of any type of professional contact. Make sure that you get all of the information that you need up front. How long will I be judging? How long is each group? How long does each student have to perform? Will I have time to write comments in between, etc.? Can I get a copy of the judge's sheet? Will you send me information about the repertoire? So those are some, and of course, where it's going to be located. Um, if it goes across lunch or something, will lunch be served? Do I need to bring my own lunch? Those are all kinds of questions that you need to ask about that. So if you click on the first link that you have, which is a PDF file, and this is going to be an example of some judging sheets, and this happens to be for some ensembles that you have there, and this happened to be from happens to be from Association of Christian Colleges and Schools. But I thought it was really nice that you can see that they've defined um, what kind of group you're going to be listening to. Typically, things with choirs and bands, you're going to be looking at tone, intonation. If you're judging solo things, also you'd be looking at tone, balance, and blend. How is the ensemble of the group? The interpretation, are they fitting the musical style of that particular time period? There's usually some kind of element of musicianship, looking at phrasing, tempo, dynamics, articulation, etc. Rhythm, if you're dealing with vocalists, often diction, could be something about accuracy overall. What did you think about the selections? Usually if there are more than 2 selections, a lot of judging opportunities will say choose 2 contrasting pieces. So you want to, in this particular one, you're going to be rating the appropriateness of their selection or the difficulty. Did you think this piece was too difficult for this particular age period, or did you think it was just right? And then a little bit about stage presence. What did they look like? How did they come on and off the stage? How did they acknowledge the audience? And this could be whether we're talking about an ensemble or a soloist. As I like to tell my students, they don't give out blindfolds to the judges when they come into the room. So those are some typical areas that you might be expected to cover in judging. The second link that you have happens to be for the larger competitions for MTNA. And sometimes in those competitions, there's a time limit. You can see that there's a purpose at the top of the page for that competition to recognize artists and young artists and teachers in their pursuit of musical excellence. You can see here the judge has to hear a composition from every time period or each category. You need to check too when you're hearing multi-movement works. Do you need to hear something from each movement? They have to play all of their pieces, and that the comments should be written in a positive manner. I find often that younger teachers or students who are just beginning to judge, they're often hypercritical. And there's a way to critique folks that you're saying, hey, we need to look at this particular aspect, but you did this very well. Be careful about your rhythm in such and such a measure. You're rushing a bit here. And sometimes performances just aren't good. You can always say something like, I think you might need a little more preparation on this piece. This was a good start, etc. But the purpose is, we want students and younger folks to perform music. We want them to be involved in music. This is how we have students. This is how we have audiences. And if you continue on this particular page for MTNA, you can see that these more formal competitions that have time limits, there's a timekeeper, there's a monitor for the room, because what you'll find oftentimes is that students in competitive events, parents, etc., you're not supposed to interact with the judges. That should happen always after competitions are over. You can see here that the judges have an orientation meeting. As part of a panel of judges, they have a spokesperson. And in general, when you're having folks play works with multiple works, they get to start with a piece of their choice. And sometimes you don't want to really torture a younger student. I often let them choose the order they'd like to play in because that makes them the most comfortable. And obviously, with the younger student, you do want to make these students very, very comfortable and have it be a positive experience so that they would like to do that again. Okay. The next one link that I have here coming up is a from the Wisconsin Music Teachers Association. And let me just pull that up here. That's taking a second. Here you have some adjudication and entrance guidelines, sort of the philosophy of why these auditions are taking place, which may or may not be competitive. You can see they have a rating sheet. Here it's to encourage musical talent. Um, but you can see here they're saying that this is accomplished through specific, honest, and constructive criticism, but also equally important, positive reinforcement and appreciative, supportive attitude. And you can see here on the rest of the page the levels of participation that will be taking place. The next one that I have for you, so you can see I've given you a lot of resources from some music teachers organizations. From West Virginia, you have here the purpose to raise the performance level throughout the state. There are different types of events here. Notice here I base these on another, and I happen to have written these on another music teachers organization. Teachers, students, parents, and family members are expected to conduct themselves in a professional manner. Again, meaning, not make noise where other people are performing. As a teacher, you need to be a teacher in good standing, that you've demonstrated service to the organization and that you've met all of the rules. You follow the composer classifications. Sometimes it might even say as a teacher that you send in one check for all your entries. Okay? Uh, so you'll see that there's sometimes rules governing not only what students are doing, but sometimes, as we see in team things like baseball, football, etc., there are a lot of rules that have to do with the parents when they're upset that their child didn't win, or there's a perception of things not being equal or things being unfair. So this is where I'm going to get back to the importance of, is there a time limit? Um, if you're hearing a sonata or something, often people will cut at the recap, but you need to look at a student's complete program. Is there a specified time limit for this adjudication or competitive event? If people are allowed 20 minutes, then if their program is under 20 minutes, they must play everything. Everyone must be given the same opportunity, because inevitably with iPhones and camcorders, people will know if it's a few seconds short or something like that. So you need to make sure that if there is a time limit, that one student doesn't play over the time, one is not under, that everything is really, really above board. Okay, so that's one of the things that's really, really important. I also gave you a link for the Maryland State Music Teachers Association, their student activities book. So you can see that their rules here. Look at this: to avoid any possible, not unfairness, but perception of unfairness. Teachers may not sit with their students or talk. Um, Usually when you hear students in a competition, you don't know their name. They're only by number. You don't know who their teachers are. And then also notice that judges' decisions are final. Here it also says in bold, under no circumstances should a parent or student contact an event chair or interact with the judges. Okay, and they even have procedures to handle irregularities. And then if you go on a little bit over to page 5, they have judges certification. In other words, that as you were a judge, you were certifying in a legal sense that everyone was treated fairly, that you didn't corroborate with a fellow judge, teacher, etc. Sometimes in these competitions they ask that you reach your decision independently. Sometimes after you vote, you ballot, it may say, okay, judges may discuss if they're not agreeing majority rule with a winner that happens to be coming up there. Okay, same thing with the Washington Music Teachers Association. They have some rules of conduct. The eligibility, again, the teacher must be in good standing, compliance with the rules, and again, they have dispute resolution. And these are, fortunately and unfortunately, due to our society being really litigious. So, we need to protect not only the teacher, the student, the parents, we need to protect ourselves as judges. So it's really important to see, are there some kind of forms that as a judge you need to sign. Okay? Get very clear in writing always, or email or phone call, when you will be paid, what is the hourly rate, etc., or how much will I be paid for the day. So again, with any professional contact or contract, it's important to get all of that up front so that you know what's going on. Okay? Um, so I have for you two short performances that you have a link to, and these happen to be Bach, um, Invention in C major. Okay, so let's take the first example. I'm going to let that play a little bit, and I hope you can hear it coming out here on the tape. So we have a young lady. Okay, so I'm going to stop it. So if I were judging, I would comment on thank you for taking time to get properly set up at the piano. I might say don't forget to bow to your audience beforehand as a way to say thank you to them. I might also say something about, this is a child who's 8 years old, so I'd maybe say something, thank you for your professional appearance, because she looks really professional. And then I would say something like, this was a good tempo for you. I could feel the shape of the lines coming out. Good articulation. I heard a difference between the eighth notes and the 16th notes. 16ths are legato, the eighths are detached. Okay, let's go on. Okay, so with an invention, I would also say I hear a good exchange of the melodic material between the right hand and the left hand, good attention to the ends of phrases, and also that your ornaments are executed very cleanly and incorporated into the line. All right, so we're about halfway through. Good. So I might say here in the middle of the piece, I hear that the lines are very, very long, and good work through the changes of key. This is going through an episodic section. But what I might say is, as you drop down, make sure at the start of each phrase, da 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 da, she's kind of popping that first note. I would say make sure that you start your phrases a little quieter so that they have room to grow. Kind of the idea of like a flower opening up, da 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 dum, ba da da dum. Okay, rather than popping the first note of the phrase. Okay, so we have some nice contrast and dynamics here. Good interplay of the voices. Nice long crescendo. All right. So we didn't get to see her bow because there's another piece she's going to play. So I might say, good work with the crescendo at the end of the piece. I could really feel you leading me to the end of the phrase. And what I might say is, stretch out the retard, plan ahead a little bit more for the end of that so that you reach the final note naturally. You notice she kind of stumbled into the retard a little bit. Now, that's being hypercritical, but overall, this is a great performance. I might also comment on that she kept the tempo very even for the most part, and that her memory work was really, really solid. So in other words, you don't want to just pick apart what you thought was what you need to work on, what was not good, but you also want to commend the student on what they've done really, really well. Okay? Now, let's go to the second performance. This is 9-year-old Henry playing the same piece, and you're going to see he's going to take people can choose different tempos. So let's see what he does, and let's comment on that. Okay, so let's talk about Henry. All right, so he's obviously taking a much faster tempo. Does that mean it's not as good as the other one, or it's better? Not really. What we could say with that one is um, impressive technique that you're able to handle this piece at that tempo. We could also say, oh, I really appreciate your energy and enthusiasm in this piece. Again, he did a very good job delineating the articulation between the eighth notes and the 16th notes. And his ornaments are very well executed. They're incorporated into the line. They don't really stick out, done very, very cleanly. And I would just say, be careful with the end of your phrase. You want to make sure that you taper it off, because you could hear that he went da 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 ba, and he kind of accented the last note of the phrase rather than tapering off a little bit. Okay, so now let's go on to the next part. Okay, so you can clearly hear and you can see from the way he's listening to what he's doing that he's listening for that exchange of the motive between the left hand and right hand. So I would definitely comment on that he's handling the contrapuntal texture of this piece really, really well. And I might say something about make sure that your articulation is consistent. Sometimes he's lifting and he's making some things legato, some things not. Not a terrible thing, but usually in Baroque music you want to keep that consistent. But he's also building the phrases very nicely. He's not punching the first note da dee da da like the other student. Right, and so I might comment here, make sure that you keep your phrases shaped really nicely. You notice his fingers got really far away from the keys and it got a little bit punchy. I meant to say on the other one too, I would comment on both students. I would commend them on their posture, their position at the piano, good technique. You can see he's got a nice rounded hand position. Great. So I would also say to him that I thought he did a great job with planning for the ending, and I might even say thank you for your smile at the end. I could tell you really, really enjoyed playing this piece. So just taking a really short example like that, and we did our comparative listening assignment. This is a really great way, for you to get your name out there as a professional musician in the area, whether you're a teacher or whether you're a performer, whether you're an independent teacher, because they'll say, oh, so and so said this. I know I'm obsessed with my lack of hair on the top. Said this. I really appreciated their comments. This was really, really helpful to me. Or, you know, uh, one organization may call another organization and say, hey, I'm looking for a judge for this event. Do you know anybody that's really good? Who did you have that was a good judge? So in all of those professional situations, it's important that you make sure that you do a great job, because it leads to other opportunities. Again, it's that idea of networking. And So I look forward to you guys going out there, being professionals, adjudicating, performing, etc. You might want to take the opportunity to come to the West Virginia Music Teachers Association, to the various competitions that we have on Saturday. Give you an opportunity to hear some young folks play. There's some college students that are competing. Listen to a level of competition. Who did you think was the best? Why do you think the judges picked one particular person over another? And sometimes it's really hard to tell. It could be that wow, this person is just playing markedly more difficult repertoire than another 12-year-old. But you're going to hear a lot of terrific students. And sometimes it comes down to musicality. Sometimes it comes down to personal preference. Some people like a particular style of playing over another, and that's why you're being contracted as a judge. That group wants to know your opinion about the music. Your opinion may not be someone else's, and not everyone will agree. And that's sometimes the tricky or the difficult thing about judging, because sometimes you have to explain yourself. Why did you pick this particular person? And then sometimes, you know what, you may even get in a competition or an adjudication where everybody plays the same piece. Now that gets really tricky, because what differentiates one person from another, a lot of times it can come down to what's in the score, what's in the music, who is the most accurate. When I come down to the end of the day, sometimes when you're listening to younger students, they're not really consistent, especially if they're playing more than one piece. So a lot of times, in my mind, I have to go back to what were the best performances of the day? What was the best piece I heard of the day? And, sometimes that helps me make a decision. But, sometimes it's really, really difficult. One other word of advice I can give to you when you're judging: a lot of times, if you're on a really, really tight schedule, um, I've been, I'm old. I've been around for a long time, so I know a lot of music. I'm familiar with the music. I don't usually look at the score. Sometimes I do, but I immediately begin writing, because you a lot of times don't have time to hear the performance and then write. You've really got to be multitasking and doing all of that stuff right at the same time. Okay, so it's important to look at how much time do you have for these things. Sometimes I've adjudicated where the piece is over before I've written my name down at the bottom of the page. They're just really, really short teaching pieces. So you have to work very, very quickly to make sure the event runs on time, because that's another aspect of judging. You don't want to make the competitions behind, because there may be another group coming in right after your particular segment, if you're just judging one section of something. So again, try to get as much information as you can about the competition, and get all of your questions answered. Have those questions down that I just was telling you about in this particular lecture. Okay, so I hope that was helpful, and I hope that you will have a successful time out there judging. Thanks.